Hello. Welcome back. You caught me off guard again. You think I would be ready since I had planned this live stream a while ago. It's Matt here, Heroes for Hire Comic Club channel. And let's just get right to it. Please like the video. It helps the algorithm. My guest tonight is a very special guest. He actually is a comic book community award winner. He's one of the inspirations for me to get into this YouTubing and actually to get back into comics, if I'm being honest. Without any further ado, let's introduce Mike from Lunch Money Comics. Oh, I think we caught him reading too.
Oh, I'm sorry. caught me reading a comic book. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. I mean, I've only got 147 subscribers, so
it doesn't matter. Hey, everyone starts somewhere. Absolutely, that's awesome. That's really good.
I've only been doing it 2 months, so
I mean, it's really good. Honestly, in a couple months. Congrats.
Let's say hello to some of these guys in here, sure. And then I'll try to just we won't do much of the chat tonight though. Hey, it's my friend Aaron, Psychotronic Squirt Gun. I call it one of the longest names. He's got almost the longest name as I have for my YouTube channel. And we got Bill. Hey, how you doing? Pizza Rat Collects. One of my buddies is on my live stream. And then we got he says our New England president. All right. He's got my vote. All right. So well, I started this and I thought it was a good idea to be like, you know, Matt, it isn't, and it's not just going to be the ones that have more subs than me, but the YouTube comic book creators, you know, just I want to like pick. Here we go. I got the ringer. It's Flat Earth right there. Hey, Glenn, and he's starting his channel soon too. So everybody sub up to him. If my administrator in there will put his everybody's links in the chat. Okay, I'll have to avoid that. I'll get distracted by that. I'm like, I got ADHD, so. But I just wanted to, like, you know, have a mutual conversation with you about it. And, so I guess the first question is, what is your comic book origin story?
Oh boy, I think I've told this in places in the past, and hopefully the story hasn't changed too much on the retellings. You know, when I was about, 8 years old or so, a family friend gave us like a box of old comic books, right? They just gave them to me, and I didn't really know much about them. Most of them were DC. I'm guessing there was like 200 books in there. Most were DC, and most of those were Superman and Flash. Oh. And I thought they were cool. And there's also a lot of like horror stuff that an 8-year-old kid probably should not have had. But they were intriguing, you know. And he like wrote on them, like he numbered them all. He didn't keep them in very good shape. But there were some Marvel comic books that were interesting, including, you know, an X-Men comic. And I didn't know what was going on in that X-Men comic. I didn't know who the characters were. I didn't know anything. The only characters I knew really, again, were Flash, Superman, and of course, Spider-Man. I grew up with Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends, you know, the cartoon. So yeah, I kind of fiddled with those books and I liked them. But then in the early 90s, right when comic books started to get big again, they had those Marvel cards. And there's a kid I was hanging out with. He got a pack, hoping to get a hologram, didn't get one, handed me these cards, and my mind was blown. And it was Series 2 Marvel cards in 1991. I started looking at those. I was like, wait a minute, this character's in here I recognize from that X-Men comic book. Yeah. Now I kind of understand. I can read about them and find out. So I started buying those cards, and that was it. That was off for the races. And then once I actually knew the characters more, I was more interested in them. And I met a couple people who were into comic books, and then I started collecting right when, you know, X-Men started getting big. So I kind of got in right when like X-Men, adjectiveless X-Men, you know, 1991 X-Men came out. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, it was like a runaway train. You know, you get all the cards, and, you know, the animated series came out, and that was it. I was in paradise. It was like the best time of my life, you know. I never really even realized how much I missed it. But I was decidedly at that point a Marvel guy. You know, I liked the DC stuff, and I read it, but I was really Spider-Man and X-Men for me was everything. Yeah.
Me too. I love the, like, X-Men. I have a similar experience with, like, when I got into it, like, my when I was a kid, my father would he was in the National Guard. He's a veteran in the Marine Corps, but he was in the National Guard for 20 years. And like every summer they go out for training right at another base. So wherever he went, if it was Fort Knox or Fort Bragg or wherever, even overseas, the PXs always have comic books. Mm-hmm. And he would bring back a stack of them. We'd have like the Charlton Fighting Marines and G.I. Joe. Oh yeah, even Little Devil. You know, you remember Little Devil? Yeah, and Casper the Friendly Ghost and and stuff I probably shouldn't have been reading because he would just grab Conan the Barbarian. Didn't matter. Star Trek, Star Wars. Yeah. And but yeah, and then I just got attracted to it. Then finally I started, and that's why I like your show, your story so much. Also, is that the reason it's called Lunch Money Comics,
Oh yeah.
because you would save your money. You couldn't afford to really, your family couldn't afford to give you a bunch of money to go out and buy comics, and
Right.
I couldn't really either. And so I would save up, like, just if I got money for like helping with the lawn or something, mowing the lawn,
Right.
and then I'd go to the 7-Eleven and get some sweet tarts or some sprees
Ah, yeah.
and
Oh
get
yeah.
some comic books. And
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
and that was part of it, right? Like I grew up in a pretty, poor family. My parents had me as teenagers, and they worked their butts off, and I just, I never asked for money. I was just, you figure it out yourself, right? That was the way it went. So I would save my lunch money. I would starve myself basically to save up enough money to buy 1 or 2 comic books.
yeah,
And being now not having that problem and having disposable income, when I started the channel, I thought, that's a great name for the idea behind how I collect comic books, because I still kind of collect the same way, as cheap as possible.
yeah. Well, that's why I do claim sales and stuff. I was on Whatnot for a while, but the fees were.
Oh
But
yeah,
I just want to make money in order to support reading my new comic books and collecting,
yeah,
because I collect Uncanny X-Men, G.I. Joe, Captain America, the old Captain America, Volume 1.
yeah.
And it's just, I mean, and I guess it's going to lead me into my next question is, what do you love about comic books?
Oh man, there's a lot there.
I know it's a
So I
broad
mean,
question, man. I know
yeah. So I mean, the easy ones is people say it's the art, it's the stories. It's for kids. It's easy to wrap their minds around it, and have their imagination. I think for me as a kid, what really captured my imagination, especially as a kid who liked lots of different fantasy type things. I like Star Wars. I loved Lord of the Rings. I didn't have a problem with imagination or anything like that. Comic books for me were almost even too literal. I don't need to see the pictures. I just need to read the story. But for me, I felt like I was putting my shoes in the position of the characters. And that's also why I probably relate Marvel to Marvel more, because here we have the X-Men. I was this poor, scrawny, tiny little kid. I had hand-me-down clothes all the time. I got bullied at school. The idea that these X-Men characters, these outcasts of society, were actually really, really powerful, really hit home for me. The idea that Spider-Man, this incredibly powerful kid, he's still a kid with real problems. I related to Peter Parker. For me, it was that. It was yes, it's a cool fantasy world that isn't real, but I could put myself in the shoes of those characters way better than I could like in Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was it for me. It was those characters, and that's why Marvel has always appealed to me. It's a lot easier for me to relate to down on his luck superhero kid, teenager, than a billionaire philanthropist Batman, or a god like Superman. I like those characters, but you just can't quite relate to them the same way.
I have the same experience with like Marvel. Was like, I mean, I like I told you before we went live. I have I have a disability, and even when I was a kid, when I got around better, even back then. But when you have this disease, even the lighter version, or what, I don't know how to say it right, but the more mild version, you still, if you overdo yourself, your muscles, your whole, imagine your whole body cramping up. So I spent a lot of time inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so the comic books were a way for me to escape.
Oh yeah.
Or I didn't have nobody to talk to. I was the only child. So, so I could totally relate to that.
Nice.
Okay. Well, what are some of your favorite comic book series?
Well, X-Men, of course. I love the Chris Claremont X-Men. It's funny, as much as I loved and kind of got into the ground level of the Jim Lee X-Men era, which I liked, I actually had started reading the X-Men books that were older, and I really liked Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is one of those characters I first really related to, and I really liked the Claremont Byrne X-Men, that era. So as much as I love the 90s X-Men, I like the older X-Men better, and I still think that's true. I'm more likely to reread a book from the 70s or 80s than I am like something from the 90s when I grew up. I do think there's more story there. They're better written, I think, in my opinion, and I actually like the art better as well. So I love X-Men, and because I love X-Men, I love all X-Men. I do collect pretty much every X-Men title. Spider-Man, same thing. 90s Spider-Man is different, though. I like the 90s Spider-Man better than the older stuff. So I was pretty hardcore into 90s Spider-Man as well. So that's what I used to read. I also got more to Daredevil the older I got. Those are probably my 3 big loves, X-Men, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. And then nowadays, it's funny, I actually am reading more graphic novels than anything else. It's kind of a time and money thing, like
I do that too.
I don't have that much time, right? So I can't keep reading a series. I don't love the new modern comic books. They're expensive if you actually get them every single week. But a graphic novel, I mean, it's a book. It's a book I can sit down with, and it takes me a couple days, or even if it's just like one sitting, I feel like it's one digestible thing. I'm not committed to it. TV shows, golden age of TV, right? Even when there's a TV show I know I'm going to like, I don't like starting it because I know I'm going to get sucked in and it's going to be a time commitment. So for me, it's like a graphic novel. I'm done with it. Like it's one thing. I don't have to keep going unlike an ongoing series. So that's currently what I'm reading is more modern stuff. But yeah, going back, X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil are my babies. Yeah.
It's better to have a collective. But you were talking about X-Men. Yeah, I just completed I got all 4 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Finally. I'm
going
to
put them on the wall too. The one with all of them stretched out. But
yeah, I love it when they're all. It's like I don't know. Jim Lee's awesome.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, the old school is the way to go.
It's absolutely.
I love the old ones. It's
There's wild stuff in those stories. Chris Claremont had some just crazy stuff going on. I go back sometimes. I'm like, what was he thinking? And his plotting was stretched out over a decade. There were little seeds and little Easter eggs he would leave that he wouldn't resolve for years later. They can't even do that in modern comics anymore. So you get a different writer in there and they just pull the whole thing up.
Or then they'll have like an event and then it'll 86 everything going on in that series.
Yeah, that's it. Start over. Right. Claremont, they didn't do that. And I love the fact you don't ever have someone writing a series for 16 continuous years. Like the idea of Wolverine. Let's take Wolverine, for example. Like Wolverine, he didn't like how Wolverine was introduced, didn't think he was that interesting. He almost dropped him. From the storyline. John Byrne talked him into it. Says we can do some cool things. They sat down and they worked out what his backstory is. He was like a 150-year-old mutant, had been in the wars, but they didn't have to reveal that. They just stretched that out over 10 years, little nuggets here and there, what his real name was, and it works so well. You can't do that in modern comics anymore.
And he did that with Rogue too. She's such an interesting character. She's one of my favorite X-Men.
Yep. Nightcrawler too. Nightcrawler again. Even now they use kind of
and people are afraid of him, but he's actually a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
And he's a God-fearing. Yeah, and also the thing I follow the Rogue thing was, and I'll give you an example of some books. I'll show you. And I know this one's a key because this is the first time she, when she joins the X-Men, she's not. Yeah. But I think, and I've argued with people about this before, that this one, the one where Logan's going to get married. It's X-Men, X-Men 173. I'll argue that this should be a minor key because this is the first time he trusted Rogue. She saved his life at the end of this book, and she was the only one he could trust because all the other X-Men had been kidnapped.
Right.
And I think it's like when they first started to form a bond, and I think it should be, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it should be kind of a tiny key. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's lots of little information nuggets like that. It's good. It's only really known to readers of the books. But hey, if it's key to you, who cares what the internet says? If it's key to you, it's important to you. It's important to you. That's it.
But what you were saying about Wolverine is interesting because I remember reading that Claremont said that him and Miller had a car ride together from the San Diego Comic Convention, I think it was. And he asked him if he would draw for him. They were going to do that, the Wolverine miniseries, 1982. Yeah. And he said, no, he's not really an interesting character. He's too violent. There's nothing there. And he says, but what if we made him like a samurai,
right.
And like, they were like, that's how they did it. And I thought that was brilliant because in having him and all that, it humanized him a little bit more
definitely.
I know they're still. And that's, I think the best writers, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But you get me excited to talk about Uncanny X-Men. I'm trying to collect all the ones from like 1980 to like 1992, like or after when Jim Lee left for Image.
Yeah.
All right. And okay. When did you decide? Okay, this is kind of off comic books. It's kind of related to it.
Sure.
Why did you decide to do it? We kind of talked about this before we went on the air. I feel like I'm on TV, but why did you decide to get into doing YouTube channel?
Oh man, that is so tough. So yeah, I mean the short answer is, the too long didn't read version is, I was kind of bored. I was like, I just wanted to talk to anyone about comic books. I only had one friend I really grew up with. I was into comic books. He lives on the other side of the country now. No one's really into comic books very much. So I just wanted to talk about them. But before that happened, so I was watching, we have, COVID, we had the shutdown. All hobbies started skyrocketing again. And I started watching, some more of these, YouTube channels on, like comic book, collecting. And I never really stopped collecting comic books. I would just cut back during college and stuff, but I always bought comics. But yeah, when you're home alone, bored all this time, whatever, I started getting into my collection, started selling a lot of other collectibles I had, decided I'm absolutely keeping my comic books. As I'm going through those, started watching some other YouTubers. And the one thing that, there's a lot of great YouTubers out there, but the one thing that kind of bothered me is like how I collected comic books. I collected comic books cheap. I'm very blessed to live in New England. I'm surrounded by flea markets and antique shops and all this great stuff. I find comic books everywhere really cheap. I collect antiques. I find awesome stuff all the time. And I'm watching, these YouTubers talking about speculation on comics based on the MCU, and you're buying these here and you got to grade the comics. And I'm thinking to myself, that's insane. I find those rare books all the time, just like at flea markets for $1. And not only was I seeing like the money, it wasn't something that really appealed to me, but like the speculation didn't make much sense to me at all. And no one was really talking about the story. So for me, it was kind of like, well, these people don't collect like I do. And I thought that 90% of comic book YouTubers were catering to the top 10% of collectors. The people collect key issues, big expensive books. I sound like a hypocrite looking behind me. I'll get to that. But no one collected comic books like I did. So I said, you know what? Be the change you want to see in the world. Make the YouTube channel you want to watch. So I had no one to talk to. I wanted to do an experiment. So I went to a local indoor flea market where I knew there were comic books, found a couple, filmed it. And I said, if I can make a video in a couple of hours, then maybe I'll try this YouTube thing. And I actually made 3 YouTube videos. Weren't supposed to see the light of day. I got bored one day, came up with the name Lunch Money Comics, and I just posted them. Whatever. Let's see what happens. And I was shocked. And then that 4th or 5th video, I found a really big collection down the street. And then 2 weeks into Lunch Money Comics, it just exploded on me. And I did not expect it at all. But it gave me confidence to keep on going. If people saw, like people did collect, like my guess was more people collected like me than it was indicated if you watch other YouTubers. And I found out that's true. Most people do collect on the cheap, and they just like finding things and digging through old dollar bins like I do. And I liked it. I think it resonated with people. And then it went a little out of my control. It exploded. And within a month, it was like I had thousands of viewers. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing now on the weekends. But because of that, I met so many people in the hobby. I just kept making more friends and meeting people like you, like people who have the same backstory, different walks of life, different places in the world, but we all like the same things at the same time. And that's just the end. That's just the connection. And that was it, off to the races. And I never really looked back. And it's been invigorating, because that person, I wasn't talking to anyone. I just needed to say out loud, and then people answered back, right? People responded to me, and now I have thousands of friends worldwide who I can talk about comic books with. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Well, it's the same here, but let's talk about Aaron's series. Says, I'm from Connecticut, but I live in Washington State now. Comics don't always come easy up here. And to touch on that, though, I remember watching some of your videos about when you go, like you went somewhere and it was like I think it was a distribution warehouse. You went with your son, and they had like all these copies of like Wolverine 88. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I said, I need to go to, and then you'll go on like those crawls, or what are the pub crawls?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I need to get to New England, and I need to go to the Massachusetts area on a vacation, I guess, because if we don't,
there's a follow-up
there. Comic shop. I have to rely on my comic shop to get new comics.
Right. So that comic sale that you saw, they just had the second one last week, and my video for it's coming out on Monday. So watch that one. And the first time when I went to that sale, there was like 30 or 40 people there. This time, because of my video, there were hundreds of people. They drove up from as far as Pennsylvania to go to this sale. It was awesome. It was great. Our community is fantastic. People were nice and sharing books just like the first time. Just a lot more people. And I'm lucky. Yeah, again, I'm wicked lucky in where I live. Anywhere where have a big population density, you're going to have more stuff in general. Absolutely. But we also have the historic aspect of it, right? Yeah. So I'm lucky where I am, but I do a lot of work. I don't tell people that, but like the amount of work I put into finding these places, I'm doing it constantly every night. Research to find new places. And most of the times I find absolutely nothing. It's just practice over and over and over again until you find something good enough to make a YouTube video.
Yeah. And we got a comment here. It says, Mike, you were my inspiration to begin recording videos for YouTube.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, Nate's great. I love Nate too. He's a good guy.
He's got some good stuff.
Yeah. No, like I said, I get these comments. I've gotten them for a while now, and it's the best validation of my YouTube channel. Like, it's all I really need. I hear that stuff, and it pulls my heartstrings. People tell me they got back into collecting, or they reconnected with their dad, and and I don't. I get that too from watching other people. I watched other YouTubers, and I was like, man, I remember my comic books. I remember the good old days, and I would take them out. I think everyone just inspires each other, and we realize we're not alone. We realize that we all have the same story, just told in a slightly different way. So it's cool that everyone can kind of inspire each other.
Well, what's also great, though, what you're saying to me is the way you go out. I love doing that. There's nothing better. It's fun to buy stuff on eBay or whatnot, you can get some good deals on Whatnot. I'm not going to lie. If you're, but it's always so fun to be out in the wild, as I call it. And I remember, or like on Marketplace, I met this guy on Marketplace. He lived like 20 miles from my house. He had a stack of comics, and there was 5 copies of Seduction of the Innocent in it, #1. And but it was like $50 50 comics. He said, 35. I said, and I didn't want to rob him. I was like, I knew that comic was hot because of the Dave Stevens documentary. And I was like, well, these are worth a little bit more. He said, I don't care. I just want rid of them. My wife doesn't want me. And I was like, all right. And I gave him like $50 for all of them.
Yeah.
And, but see, that's what's a good feeling about that was I was able to get rid of like 4 of them and buy some, keep one of them and get some stuff I wanted, like some old Silver Age Avengers comics. And that's what's so great about it to me. And
the hobby can try to get the hobby to pay for itself and leverage and other things. And I think the biggest thing for me is the networking. Like I just know so many people now. Whatever book, there was times like I wouldn't be able to find a book. I used to never go to comic shows. That was one of the biggest things that changed since starting my channel. I'd been to some in the 90s. I hadn't been to one in 20 years, right? Started going to them again, thinking I can never afford these books, but you leverage up, right? You get some things, you find some pretty good deals, you can trade those, and you get better books, and people, and they know you're looking for this book. Hey, I got a good deal for you, and then all of a sudden, things I never thought I could have before. Like I always collected comic books, but I never collected expensive ones, and I feel like it was a little against the lunch money mantra. But a lot, guys, all the stuff behind me, I don't usually say this stuff out loud, but all the stuff is from the hobby paying for itself. I get a little bit of money from YouTube, but all this stuff is I buy stuff cheap, I trade, I sell some of it at flea markets, and I just keep going. It just feeds itself and builds. And the next thing you know, you can do it. It's a lot of work, but you can do it.
That's exactly. See, that's proof that it can work. You can get the hobby to pay for itself if you go out there and look. If you can look, even and just sell stuff. And like we got another comment here. It says that Mike is the best. Gave us many pointers when we started our channel.
Yeah, those guys, Jabs, Spence, Fader, you guys are great. They reached out to me, and I mean, there wasn't much to really critique. Like they had right off the bat, they had a good game plan of how they were going to go about it. And I tell everyone the kind of like the same things. When you start a channel, people ask me a lot on the advice. There's 2 parts of it, right? There's the technical aspect, like how do you film, how do you edit, how long should the video be, stuff like that, right? That's clearly a part of it, and that's usually what I tell people technically things. The second part is the personality, like. You need to be prepared. Like you're putting yourself out there, right? It might be a case like mine where all of a sudden 1 million people are watching you, and you can freak out if you think about it too much. You need to have the right temperament and go about it, and you have to have bulletproof skin, because even as nice as all my viewers are, law of large numbers, you're going to get horrible comments sometimes. So you just have to have the temperament of being able to put yourself out there. But I tell you guys, like I've gotten so much more back than I put out there, I feel like. So like for those guys who ask me, it's like, like if you guys already have the temperament, the personality to do it, and you feel like you have something to say, there's not much I can really give advice for. Just go for it,
it's not that hard to ignore people that are making hateful comments. You just don't look at
hard
them.
Though. Even if it's one comment out of 10,000 people, but that's the one that sticks with you, man. And it's just like,
well, we can't please everybody, right? I don't know.
We can't please everybody. So,
but we got Flat Earth Santa said you can get great deals. I think he's talking about Whatnot, especially as I'm trying to bankrupt Larry and John.
Yes, yeah. Josh and Larry are my good friends.
Whatnot, we know,
yeah. Josh and Larry are good guys, and that's pretty funny. And you can, so it's funny too because like guys like Josh and Larry kind of like believe me, like in like the fast nickel, like you get stuff in, move it, don't sit on it, don't sell things expensive. People are there to find deals. Comic books are everywhere where we are. Just move it. So they kind of subscribe to the same thing. And that's why sometimes I go on like eBay or even some Whatnot sellers and they want top dollar. I'm like, keep moving, man. Get more money in, buy more stuff, keep it going that way. Yeah. So you can find good deals and you can really get Josh and Larry. So that's pretty funny. Yes, I agree. They're riot. They're like the best sitcom. I love hanging out with them during those sales. I just have an absolute blast.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of those. I've been in the chat on some of those sales. They're good guys.
Oh, they're fun. Yeah, we have good time together.
We have some more. I guess. Well, I don't want to get too far away with these comments, but I know you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan. This Bell says I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons guy, so it was that kept me watching. It was the same for what's on the comic rack. Yeah,
and I've met Mr. Akins in person before. I talk to him all the time. He's in my little chat threads on Instagram, and he's a really, really, really nice guy in general. He knows everything about comic books, but yeah, he's one of the few of like my inner circle friends who's like really into D&D. So whenever we can chat, talk shop, so to speak. We certainly do.
And I have a question. I don't know if you feel like this, but the one thing I love about YouTube, sorry, is now I know people in Australia and Great Britain and all across the United States. And I think that's another thing. It brings people together. So there's a lot more positive than there is negative, like you were saying.
Oh yeah. It's overwhelmingly positive. And I mean,
you're going to have a few stinkers, but
and usually, and like again, and it's easy to. It's funny too because like I always say this. I'm not a person. I'm very hard to offend. Like I'm one of those people. Like you say, Mike, you suck. Like I don't get mad. I go, oh, geez, what did I do wrong? Like how do I fix it? So when I get comments, like even if they're kind of rude, if it hits home, I don't get upset. Like I'm like, okay, that's a way to to fix it. It's the comments that just are out of left field that like this person's clearly crazy, but that's the stuff that shouldn't bother you, but that's the stuff that does inexplicably. So I just let it go. I just tell myself you can't please everybody. Some people aren't all there. I try to take any criticism I've gotten to heart. Like people say I talk too fast. I know I do. People at work tell me all the time. I try to get rid of my accent.
I get it. If I get excited, I talk fast.
Oh, I'm off to the races, and I slow it down for my videos, believe it or not. But if I get excited, forget it. I'm off to the races. So I try to slow down. I try to articulate more. People tell me the titles they're interested in. I try to open up the books more. You can't please everybody. Half my video is me searching. So I've had lots of people tell me they love The Hunt. And then other people tell me, too much of The Hunt. I like you talking about the books. And then other people say, you talk about the books too much. Show me more of the books that you hunted for. So I get a little bit of both. And I try to keep a good balance between both, depending on the day, and who I'm talking to. So
I saw one of your videos. You had all these G.I. Joes. And I was like, I think I made a comment even. I said, you need to send those G.I. Joes to me right now.
Oh, man. Yeah. And I'm terrible at G.I. Joes. And I've learned my lesson. I learned a lot from the viewers, like, Mike, those are all rare G.I. Joes. Yeah. Now I know. So now I'm looking out for them.
The one thing about the G.I. Joe that I can tell you is like every book is a key because they were always kind of
so many
action figures from Hasbro, right? So there's always some first appearance in it. Pizza Rat Collects wants to know what your favorite tabletop game that's not D&D is.
Wow. That is almost impossible. So I'm looking at my wall right here. You guys can't see is all board games. The whole wall is board. D&D's over here, and then this is all board games. My favorite board game of all time, I think, is War of the Ring. So War of the Ring, published by Ares Games, at least the second edition. It's a board game based on Lord of the Rings. The whole War of the Ring and Lord of the Rings. And it's one of the most complex, long board games ever, but it's dripping with theme. And it's the most thematic board game I've ever played in my life. One person's the good guys trying to destroy the ring. The other one's the bad guys, Sauron trying to take over. The look of this game is gorgeous. It's incredible. And I've completely pimped out my game. I painted every single one of the 300 figures, including all the expansions. I got the special rollout mat, the larger board, the special tarot-sized cards. I sleeved it. I got resin sculpts for like Mount Doom. I went out of control, but it's the best game. I played that game 60 times in my life with different people, and every time it's an experience. It's an emotional experience. I mean, you're not even like, if you lose, you're like high-fiving the guy that you're against because it's such a well-balanced game and it's cinematic. By far my favorite game of all time. Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that one out. That sounds really fun.
Oh, it's incredible.
I used to be in the Magic the Gathering a lot when I was younger, but I'd like to get back into it, but I just fell out of it. I guess I can't
do a lot because my son's into it now. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I never got I wanted to get into Dungeons and Dragons, but where I live, it was like the whole satanic. Remember the whole satanic thing? And they're like, oh no. Everybody would tell my mom that, like my aunt or somebody would say, it's like, oh, that's like they worship the devil and stuff.
Yeah.
But now it's like mainstream, like
everyone.
For these big actors, like what's the guy from True Blood, the werewolf guy from I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but
Joe Manganiello there.
Yeah, Manganiello. He's a big D&D guy, and you see like a lot of celebrities playing it now. Like Matthew Lillard's a big D&D guy, the actor.
Yeah. And even like just like comic books. I mean, like nerdy things are mainstream. I used to get bullied all the time. I was never told people the stuff I was into. Nerds have inherited the world. We are the coolest people on planet Earth. Everything. I mean, movies, comics are cool again. D&D is cool again. Like. We all knew it. We all knew it back in the day, but now
it was cool, right?
Yeah, but then like my favorite one is Henry Cavill, who's like objectively the most handsome man on planet Earth. My wife would leave me for him in a heartbeat. I mean, the fact that he's like the biggest Warhammer fan on planet Earth is like he's so freaking cool. I mean, it just makes it just people. It grounds everybody. You don't have to be like a nerd, like hanging out in a basement. anyone can be into this stuff. It's good stuff. There's a reason why people like it. So
I might after the show, I might pick your brain a little bit about what would be a good start for me because I really want to get into playing D&D.
oh, okay.
I've been really excited. I guess what caught my interest in it was Stranger Things.
Oh
I
yeah.
started watching Stranger Things, and they're like, because I remember I had friends that played it, and I didn't, I didn't really get to, but that kind of leads me to the next question. Since they brought up the board games, what other things do you collect besides comic books?
Oh, that is the most loaded question you could ask me. I collect, and so if anyone I did a video recently. I did a basement tour, and I was holding back on that for 2 years. I try to stay private with my private life. I try to say what town I live in, my kids too much. You kind of you have to have some level of privacy on the internet, right? So I've been very cautious about showing my basement because I got a lot of weird stuff. I collect a lot of strange things. I've always been into antiques. As much as I loved comic books as a kid, comic books were my guilty pleasure. That was the most normal thing I collected. I grew up around antique shops and flea markets. My grandmother used to bring me to them. Now I collect everything, right? So I collect old antiquities, antiques, old books, any natural history specimens, skulls, fossils, meteors, gems and minerals, rocks. You name it, I collect it. And I was building a museum as a kid. I loved museums. So part of my whole basement over here is a museum. It's an homage to a cabinet of curiosities.
I thought that was very cool.
That's what I really collect. Yeah, the comic books are just like my own little fun thing. It's the other stuff's the real stuff. Yeah, so it's out of control. Luckily, my wife loves antiques and loves history, so she's okay with that. She doesn't care about this.
I don't collect them maybe quite as much as I'm not as advanced as you are in that, but I do look on Facebook Marketplace or stuff. Like I got an antique desk, the old school desk, how they'd all be lined up in a row, and they have I got one of those for my table. It's like right next to me here. I can't really show you, but and like my stepfather, who's no longer with us anymore, but he used to go to the flea market, and he was good at identifying stuff like you are, like, oh, this camera, and he would sometimes keep it, sometimes he would sell it, but like he found like an old pair of antique binoculars, and he would know like these were from World War II,
right?
He'd know something like that, and but yeah, you can't be locked into just one hobby. I collect retro video games, and I also collect toys and stuff.
That's where the money's at.
That's a black hole. That's a rabbit hole to go down right there. I think they prey on us guys our age because like they have the G.I. Joe and Transformers toys, and now they're like through the roof high.
The 30-year age mistake, right? 30 years. You got to go back 30 years, and that's the hot thing because it's people in their 40s having disposable income wanting to relive their childhood. So everything's in 30 years.
Exactly.
Everything in the 80s and 90s right now is huge.
And
toys, video games are massive.
Okay, here's another loaded question. What are some of your favorite artists and writers in comic books?
Oh man. Okay, so
we probably know a few of them.
I mean, going back, like again, I grew up. The Chris Claremont X-Men run, I think, is unparalleled to me. I love everything Chris Claremont did, and there are certain artists I like a lot more. I mean, I love the John Byrne, collaboration. But honestly, people are surprised. It's not very long. The John Byrne to Chris Claremont only went from issue 108 to 143, right? So there's not too many years where that was big. Even before that, I liked, Dave Cockrum. But as for me, like growing up in the '90s too, seeing a lot of them, like I liked Eric Larson's Spider-Man. Bagley Spider-Man, just because I'm not saying I love their artwork. It's just it's the nostalgia of it. Like I see it.
Oh, yeah,
it's 1990 Spider-Man.
Eric Larson.
Right. Yeah. So I definitely like those. In modern artists, I can't really name that many. Like honestly, like I see in this certain guys I really, really like. I know which ones I don't like more than ones I do like. That sounds weird.
I know exactly what you mean.
There's some artists I'm not a big J. Scott Campbell fan. Like, oh, it's a cool cover by him, but not really. Yeah, there you go. Right, that's the stuff that brings me back. But I like the classic stuff the best, honestly, guys. The Silver Age, Bronze Age books. I love the classic style of art. So I know people kind of crap on Jack Kirby, how simple his drawings were, but there's just something special about Jack Kirby.
I disagree with that because look, Read Forever people are like one of those books.
Right.
Like it's some of the art's like all these colors just coming out everywhere.
Oh yeah, he got crazy in the 70s. He was doing some stuff in the 70s. Yeah, he got nuts.
It's like and but even the other stuff, it's like those guys like Jim Steranko.
Yeah,
who I put on the list. It's like I have actually behind me. I have Captain America 111 in a graded comic.
Oh yeah,
and that color, the cover is just to me just blows
yeah.
my mind. And
Yep.
the medium back then, I don't know, it's just there's just a different feel about like to me looking at it Todd McFarlane art over from the Amazing Spider-Man run versus like a newer artist. Although there are some great new artists I like, but
I know, but the more modern stuff feels soulless compared to the older ones. I don't know what. Like Neil Adams to me is like the best of the best. Like Neil Adams is amazing. Steranko is amazing. You know, like when I look at them, I study the faces. I look at the art, and I'm thinking, I marvel at it, like how great it is. Modern artists, I'm always like, how processed is this? You know, how digital is it? I'm talking about like really modern books. Like you don't know, whereas you know what they did back in the day, the amount of time and effort. Like I picture them drawing it on actual.
And that's why I like some of the guys that kind of do it old school, in my opinion, like Daniel Warren Johnson. I think he kind of tries to go more of an old school feel. And because when I read it, I feel like I'm in the 80s or 90s or something.
Right. And that's the idea. And we respond better to it. Like you can tell, like
absolutely
better. Yeah.
And
it's like the difference between like practical special effects and CG. Yeah, the CG is great. Like it's an amazing, but when you look at those really good practical effects, like if you watch The Thing, right? Carpenter's The Thing, like that movie's terrifying because they use practical effects and they're horrible. Like there's something visceral about them, and I feel like it's the same way with older art.
It's like with
prettier.
You know the effects guy, what's his name? Bruce Botten, I think was his name.
What was that again?
He did the effects for The Thing.
Oh, yep.
And like those effects, those practical effects blow me away more than some digitally created monster that somebody's made. Like somebody's got to hold like a stick with a tennis ball on it.
Right.
So the actors can, because like Kurt Russell in an interview said that those things really freaked them out.
Yeah.
So when you saw their face, they were really freaked out when they saw that spider head thing because it was really just crazy.
And you appreciate it more because you realize like how much harder it was for them to do it back then. You know, to actually pull this off, the engineering that's behind getting it to work. So I look at it the same way. I look at like the older art it was harder to do. It was more of a pure art form and more modern. I feel like I'm not taking anything away from the modern artists who are incredible. You know,
I'm not even and the older I got, the more I learned their names.
Right.
I learned about people like Richard Corbin.
Yeah.
Who doesn't get a lot of love, I don't think, in my opinion. Dave Stevens.
Yeah.
Joe Kubert.
Yeah.
Bernie Wrightson.
All the
I think if people that collect just modern, they're missing out because Bernie Wrightson was insane. I love it.
Yep. Wrightson's amazing. Yep.
And okay, well, I guess we kind of went off on a diatribe, both of us. But
that's right.
Okay,
that's what we're here for.
What are some of your favorite characters from comic books?
Well, like I said, my big ones are, the X-Men, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. So Spider-Man and Daredevil, that's easy. We'll get them out of the way. I can talk more about them in a little bit. But the X-Men, Nightcrawler is my favorite character. I say it all the time on my channel. I related to Nightcrawler the most. Not only is he super cool looking, but it's the idea that he is the biggest misfit of all. Like he is the one that looks the most demonic, the one that is the biggest pariah, I guess, to the regular humans that look at the X-Men, but he's actually the nicest one. He looks like a demon, but he's the most pious, he's the best friend of everyone. And that's why I really related to him. And he looks super cool, right?
He's the guy that like the other X-Men come to when they need a confidant.
Yeah, exactly. He's everyone's friend, right? And but he's the one that looks the most demonic. And again, I was pointing to one of my favorite panels in all the comic books, God Loves, Man Kills graphic novel by Chris Claremont. Probably the best definitive. What is the X-Men about? People ask me all the time, where should I start? Start with that one. But at the end of that, like the Reverend Stryker there, the mutants want to be treated as human, and he points to Nightcrawler and says, "You're telling me that thing is human?" And in the drawing, he looks really like creepy at that moment. But it really hits home. Like that's exactly it. You can't look at him and think that he's human, but he's actually has the best humanity of anyone. Most people in Marvel Comics. So I just thought that was really, really cool, and I've always related to him in that way. There's lots of reasons why, but yeah, that's probably the biggest one.
No, those are some good reasons, though. It's like, I could give you an example of somebody that's a musician that I think people, if they look at him, they judge is Post Malone. He's got all the tattoos on his face, but if you've heard him interviewed, he says, he'll tell the interviewer, "Yes, sir," "No, ma'am," or whatever. And that's surprising to me for a guy like you look at him and go, well, he's probably going to be some kind of wild, Hell's Angel or something.
Cover, right?
I'd never judge a book by its cover, but I agree with you on the God Loves, Man Kills. I just picked up something on a claim sale from my friend, cheap comic collector of the old trade paperback of that.
Yeah.
And nice. I kind of got a chuckle when you said that when you showed it to, I can't remember if it was what con you're at, and you met Claremont and he signed it, but he opened it up and signed it on the inside. I've heard other people say he does that all the time with that book.
Well, it's only on like graphic novels I found out.
Yeah.
And that's my fault. Like I didn't communicate it enough. He just kind of opened it up and I kind of said something, but I'm not going to tell him what to do with his book, right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
But it was a nice first print. I was all excited. I was going to put it on my wall, and it's still cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you got a good chuckle out of me on that one. Yeah, it happens.
Okay.
Not the first time that's happened either, or the last, I'm sure.
I have one last question, then we'll just, we might show. You can show me some comic books. That'd be another question, but I guess two questions then. But I guess they kind of fold in each other. So let me quit rambling. What are some of the most prized comic books you have in your collection? And would you care to show us?
Sure. You might have to give me a second because I didn't grab them. Yeah, so I mean, the easy answer is like this is the financial answer, right? It's like what everyone wants to see, the sexy books, right? So I have some pretty good books behind me.
It doesn't have to be the most expensive. It just means what means the most to you,
right? So that's my distinction because like as cool as like so that X-Men, I have an X-Men 1. That's like my Grail book I always wanted. I was able to get it because I found something really valuable, really cheap at an estate sale. Sold it. There's a story there. I did a video on it, and I got my X-Men 1. That was pretty magical and cool. But it's funny, like, I look at it and it's awesome. I've always had it. But like the books I remember are the ones from when I was a kid. And I have some books that I have some pretty good stories behind. And I think that really kind of drives the core of how I collect and where Lunch Money Comics came from. If you guys give me 30 seconds,
you got it.
I think it's important.
I'll find a couple of
I'm
items.
going to move some stuff around. All right. So you mentioned that you saw that that Gary Dolgoff sale, that big warehouse sale, and in that sale they had about 300 Spider-Man 2099 number ones. There's like 300 of them, legit, and I bought like 29 of them, and I've been giving them away to people, and it's giveaways and all sorts of trades and stuff. And I sell at the flea markets, a kid comes by, I give him one. I love that book because I really like the Spider-Man, all the 2099s. I collected them as a kid.
Let me get you on the screen. Okay.
Sure.
Sorry. There we go.
So I have a box of, of like still probably 10 or 12 of those Spider-Man 2099 number ones. But this particular one, which I keep separate in my most precious comic book box, this particular one has a story. So like I said, I collected the 2099 series. Everything took place in the year 2099. Each of the covers of these different characters was different, but it had the same foil outside. So they had, X-Men 2099, the first series I read from start to finish, light blue on the outside. They had Punisher 2099, dark blue on the outside. They even had Ghost Rider. They had Dr. Doom, Ravage. It's, its own unique character. Yeah. So I collected all those. I had all the first, issues, all the different foil covers. I thought it was a cool collection, but I didn't have Spider-Man 2099 number 1 because I started collecting them after it came out. So, like I said, I was a poor kid. I never had much money, and I would save, script and save, stuff from my lunch money to be able to afford, the $1.25 to buy one comic, ride my bike across town in a very dangerous street and road to get there, to get a couple comic books, and I would, they were grails to me, right? Like I would read them carefully with kid gloves, and they were meant everything. So I go to my local comic book store, and I'm going through some back issues, and I see this book, and it had a price tag of $5 on it. All right. Now, it was at an LCS, but it's a newsstand. I don't know how that happened. I didn't know there was a distinction until, I was an adult. So I saw this book for $5. I did not have $5. I had like $1.25. That's what a comic cost. So I rode all the way back home, like miles back home on my bike, started going like underneath like cushions to find extra change. Couldn't find enough. Would never ask my parents for money. So I ended up I lived next to a park, a playground. I went to the playground and they had baseball games and stuff there. And people would throw cans away. So I literally dumpster dove for like 2 hours until I got enough cans and nickels to pay for this comic book. I also lived near a redemption center. I was covered in sticky and gross. I returned all these cans for a bunch of nickels. And then I rode my bike back across town when I had exactly $5 and bought this book for $5. And that was it. That was like this moment of my life. Like I had to happen. I had to have it. I did what I had to do to get this book. I wanted to do it myself. I earned this book. Absolutely. I've had this book ever since. And despite the fact I've had dozens of copies of this book, I keep this one separate because it reminds me of where I came from, right? It reminds me of my upbringing. I appreciate things more as an adult, because I didn't have much money and I earned things. This is stuff that's hard to impress upon your kids. This is what keeps you up at night, right? Like my kids want for nothing, right? They have everything in this day and age. You know, like I'm telling them, like, you guys, if you want something, you have to earn it. I would script and save for a stupid comic book. I would get dirty and sticky and whatever. But it really is in a nutshell how I look at it. Like, you have to earn things in life. You have to work hard for things, even if you have to do things that aren't glorious and wonderful. But the reward is more than a comic book. Does that make sense? It's not just this. The reward was I succeeded at something. I completed this little mini collection, and I felt like I earned it. And that's something I try to carry with me, just no matter what I get behind me. It's the idea of start small, work your way up, work hard, and you can work into the bigger stuff that you actually want. And my entire collection has grown from this mantra. Period. That's it. This every single thing you see behind me, things I bought cheap, found at flea markets, yard sales, traded, sold, worked my way up over and over again, and that's what you get. So this is why this book is probably the most important book in my entire collection.
That's a good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. I'll show you. I just want to show you a couple.
Sure.
Like what I think I explained this earlier to you, but I remember seeing this on the newsstand.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, he's got these guys over his shoulder throwing them webbed up, and I didn't know at the time who Todd McFarlane was. I mean, not till much later, like till
right
Spawn fame, because he started kind of promoting himself a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And but like just that whole thing, I'm like, well, he's really kicking those guys' butts. And I want to know what was going on the inside. It's like something. Have you ever, when you were a kid, you ever remember seeing something and it just called to you, like you saw it there? You're like, it will be mine. And then Absolutely. I remember this one. This is what got me into Captain America. You see the shield behind me, but the thing I like about him is almost the same reason you like Nightcrawler. And that's all I'll show is because even if it's going to hurt him, he will do the right thing no matter what.
Always. Right. And
even if
that's something I believe in.
Wrong, he's going to stand up to it. He's not going to, he doesn't stand on his laurels. He doesn't like just say, I love doing this or this, and then he just backs off or doesn't. He always does what he's going to say. He's always there for all his pals. And, you know, of course, you got the lovely Mike Zeck working on a bunch of comic books too. That you love Captain America when you see the way he draw it. And I think, I think Mike Zeck is one of the most underrated artists.
100%. Yeah.
I mean,
everyone talks about the, Secret Wars #8, but like his Captain America stuff is the best. That Captain America annual with him against Wolverine is one of the best comic books ever.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so cool.
He did some great G.I. Joe covers too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, there's an Amazing Spider-Man. I can't remember what number it is. It's right before McFarlane got onto it, was drawing it. But he did one. It was him and Craven on the cover. It's from that Craven's Last Hunt.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And just that, I don't know, it just blew me away. But and I guess, I could also mention this one was one for me.
The Buscema
and
cover.
it took me a while to get this one, but I don't know how much longer you can go. I didn't want to keep your, I know you got a lot to do.
No, I'm here. We're still early. It hasn't even hit an hour yet. So if you have questions or anything,
have any questions they want to? Try to think of another question, but
I mean, I can show stuff if you guys want to see fancy stuff. I have fancy stuff.
Yeah, show us some of the stuff.
Let me actually show this. So I really was reading that comic book. So I was reading this. I recently got in a collection that'll be in a video in a couple of weeks. There was I call it a junk shop. I mean that with a term of endearment. It was an antique shop on Facebook Marketplace. They were selling a box of Bronze Age books, and I ended up buying all of them. And there were some pretty good ones in there. But there were so many books as I'm going through it, I was like, I got to read that. And I would stop. It just messes up your, if you're bagging and boarding and you come across a book, you're like, I got to look at that right now. And this is one of them. This is I used to love What If as a kid. I loved it. I love the idea behind What If stories, which is all comic books now are What If because there's so many alternate timelines. But what if Thor and the Avengers battled the gods? And it's basically over Jane Foster. And this book is awesome. I've never seen this comic book before. And here I am, going to bag and board. I'm like, wow, hey, this is pretty cool. Next thing you know, I'm completely sucked into this book. Look at the splash pages on this. Actually, I don't even know who did this.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Actually, who did the art on this? I don't know if I
know, but it looks really good.
Rick Buckler and Dave Simons. So, this is the stuff, I love these older books. So I've gotten really derailed. I haven't finished bagging and boarding that collection because I keep getting sidetracked. But people ask me too, do you read your comic books? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And in my videos, it sounds like, people ask me, how do you know all that stuff? The answer is I don't know all of it. I know what key issues are. I know general storylines, but a lot of it is when I get comic books, before I talk about them, I read them. You know, like I absolutely do. If I know what's going on it, yes, because I couldn't help myself. I'm sitting here, you know, getting ready to film. I'm like, I'm going to read this whole comic book and no one's going to stop me. It's late at night. Kids are in bed. What else am I going to do? So I try to read that stuff then. So, and that's the fun part, guys. You know, then it feels like you're actually enjoying them for the function that they originally are. It's not just holding them, putting them in a box to, you know, to get dusty. You know, you're enjoying them. And I feel like you appreciate the book a little bit more if you had a moment with it. Before it got
now, when I get one I've always wanted, like that Wolverine #8, I'll sit there and stare at it. I'll leave it out for like a couple of days and just every now and then admire it.
Right. Yeah. No, and sometimes you got to look. I don't do that enough. Like this is also my office. I work down here a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes in between meetings, I look over. I'm like, hey, I have a pretty cool collection, and I be like, otherwise, in the course of the day, like I don't even think twice about it half the time, and I don't get to appreciate them. But sometimes late at night, I'll caress the books, you know, nuzzle up to them. I'm kidding. But I try to appreciate them as much as I can.
We got a question here for you.
I did not. No, I never read any of those comics. You know, it's funny when I stumbled across them. I remember the cartoon as a kid. I definitely watched that cartoon.
Me too.
And so there's some comic books that are adaptations of that, right? But no, I never did. You know, for me, I was more likely to play Dungeons and Dragons, you know, or read through the books and stuff. I used to love just reading, you know, the Gazetteers, you know, those books there, or the Monster Manual. I would just read through those. So I didn't even know there were Dungeons and Dragons comic books, honestly, until I got a little bit older.
Well, Dr. Von Hoot has an interesting question that's not comic book related, but I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Holy smokes. So this is actually funny. So I feel like I didn't go to concerts until I was much older. Like I feel like I was definitely like in high school, like later in high school, you know. I can't tell you exactly my first concert because it's probably like a minor one, right? Like a little one. But the first like big concert I ever went to was Bon Jovi.
Me
and
too.
The reason is, really?
I swear.
No, there you go.
Skid
Row.
Bon
Jovi. And the reason is my aunt is actually not much older than me. My mom's parents died when she was young, so she was like we like adopted her. She was like my older sister. So she was really like in the 80s, was really into Bon Jovi and hair bands and stuff. Yeah. So I liked Bon Jovi as a little kid. So when I got older, we started going to Bon Jovi concerts together. We went to tons of them together. So it was Bon Jovi, and I liked it. It was a fantastic show. Obviously, I love Bon Jovi, but then it was like a tradition for years. We'd go to lots of them until the point where like we got like front row tickets, and she actually met him multiple times. We got to go to meet him, Richie Sambora. Like it was a big deal. So that was that was my first concert was Bon Jovi, but the first of many after that. Worst concert, oh God. This is a tough call. This isn't fair. That I'm going to say this because it was a great concert. U2. My wife loves U2. I went to what should have been one of the best U2 concerts of my life, but we were sitting behind the stage. It was in Hartford, Connecticut, I think. And the way they did the stage, you had to be behind, and the speakers were right in front of us. And it was so loud. It was so loud. Like no one in our section wasn't like, we were all just like, this is cringy. And we had to we're blocking our ears the whole time. Which sucks because U2 puts on an amazing show. Had nothing to do with the band. It had to do with where we were sitting and they screwed up the sound. And it was so loud, it was distorting, I went to a Kenny Chesney concert at Gillette Stadium and it was so echoey. It was pouring rain and that's the worst. It was so echoey and rainy. Couldn't hear them. And Zach Brown opened for them, and I like Zach Brown. Couldn't hear him. It was just like it was just reverb. So that was the worst one. It was raining so hard we actually left. So that's probably my first and my worst. I can't tell which one my best is. I've gone to a lot of great concerts.
My first concert was I was 13 years old. My mom took me to it. That's what a trooper my mom was, and it was Bon Jovi with Skid Row as an opening act.
Heck yeah.
And it's when they had remember when Bon Jovi had the whole platform walkway that would go around the stage, and we got to see Richie Sambora in front of me playing a solo on You Give Love a Bad Name. It was really glorious for a 13-year-old to see all these guys up close, and like awesome. And the other thing I liked about John Bon Jovi is he had that Superman tattoo.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was cool. Yeah. And I guess
he's a nice guy too. He's a really nice guy.
Worst concert, I got two of them actually. I don't know if I can not mention both of them. I saw Aerosmith, and they are not. That must have caught them at the year. We caught a band at the end of their tour.
Yeah.
and Steven Tyler could not. But I don't know. I think they've been touring a lot, so I can't really say much. But the worst one I went to was canceled because it was Hank Williams Jr. with my cousin, and he didn't show up because he was too drunk.
Oh boy.
Yeah, apparently that happened a lot.
You hear about that happening sometimes.
Yeah, it happens a lot with the old school. Some of the old school guys a lot. Okay, we had another. Somebody said their first concert was Black Eyed Peas. That's cool.
That's cool. Random rips. Yeah. Charlie Daniels Band, 1980. That's awesome. And man, best Van Halen and worst Van Halen, which is awesome. Because Van Halen, obviously, different eras, very different opinions. So that's actually a fantastic answer.
Yeah. My best concert was I saw Black Sabbath reunion tour when he was on Ozfest.
Wow.
And they were doing and it got kind of spooky. They started playing the song Black Sabbath, the song called Black Sabbath, and lightning struck behind the stage. It's an outdoor arena. We're like, oh,
cool. I
said, I think the Lord's trying to tell us. I'm just joking, but okay. Well, I don't know. I got a question for you. What's your favorite animated series? I had a debate about this the other day based on a comic book. And I heard you say Spider-Man and Friends. That's where I get my outro for my videos from. I say, until next time, true believers.
Right.
Because Stan used to say that at the end of the show.
Right. I mean, the easy answer is the X-Men series, right? That's the easy one. And I love X-Men 97 was crazy. No one expected it to be that good. And they pulled off a pretty good magic trick. It appealed to people who watched the show and people who had never watched it before. It was awesome. That's the easy answer. I like the Spider-Man series, definitely. But, if you ask me which one was the best series, as a Marvel fan, Batman the Animated Series might be the best superhero animated series ever. I mean, it is absolutely awesome. I mean, I watched it. Even my wife, who doesn't like comic book stuff, watched it, every day when she got home from school. So
I was like in high school, early high school. When
I'm a few years younger than you.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Sneak and watch them. I even watched remember the Justice League animated series? I was probably 19 or 20 when that came out, or in my 20s, and I was sneaking watching. Like, everybody come in and go, "Where are you watching?" "Oh, I'm watching football."
Oh, right, yeah. I wouldn't tell anyone. Flat Earth Santa, I'm taking a picture of this because I can absolutely do that for you, by the way.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen too.
There we go. I'm taking a picture for Josh and Larry so they know. So they know I'm not making it up. Yeah, no problem. Absolutely no problem. I almost saw him today. Usually on Wednesdays, I will meet one or both of them at a Treehouse, our favorite brewery, one of the best breweries in the country, right down the street from us. I usually meet Larry there, but today I'm faking it pretty good for this. I'm pretty sick today, so I didn't go, unfortunately. But yeah, I usually see those guys every week, at least once, so I can do that for you.
I'm sure I
was into Voltron as a kid. I was definitely into Voltron as a kid. Psychotronic.
I got the toy with the lions and stuff when I was a kid, and oh man, I love it.
Yeah, so like I said, because I was poor, I couldn't afford that. But I had the little ones, and I found this at a flea market this year, antique shop kind of, and it's the small die-cast one. This is actually before. This is when he was Go Lion. This is actually from before Voltron, the U.S. version. It's pretty old.
Yeah.
It's missing the sword, kind of beat up, but one of my how cool is that? So I don't collect many toys, I don't have that much nostalgia for them, except for Voltron. Voltron is the one thing I will make an exception for. He-Man to a lesser extent. I got rid of my He-Man and a lot of my Star Wars, but Voltron, I'm keeping this thing. I love this thing.
Well, I collect the comic book statues kind of right now, but if I see some toy that I loved as a kid, I'll try to get it. I always wanted the Rom Space Knight toy, but I never could get it right. Well, then I was like, well, I'll look on eBay. This has been about a year ago. It's like $300. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to own one.
Oh yeah, I've had that dilemma before.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I just couldn't justify. I'll do that with an expensive book if it's a $200. I'm like, well, imagine how many little books I could buy for $200.
Oh, there's that too. Yeah, I mean, I don't like. Despite the fact that I collect a lot of stuff, I've gone away from clutter. I mean, I have so many comic books. I'd rather have one really nice one I've never had before that I've always wanted than a whole bunch of little ones. There's a little bit of that. But the other thing, I think about antiques differently now. My wife actually kind of convinced me of this. As much as she likes antiques, she really does not like stuff as much as I do. Likes to have less stuff in the house. And she always points it out. We go to flea markets and stuff. She loves doing it because for her, she just needs to see the stuff. It transports her back in time. It's the cheapest time machine ever, right? You just go to an antique shop. For me, a lot of stuff like toys, I don't need to own them. I just want to see them again and conjure that memory from those deep recesses you forgot it was even there.
Absolutely.
That's what I need. Or I see an old cartoon, I'm like, oh man, I remember that. I don't need to own it. I just need to relive it for a quick second. Comic books are different because I like collecting them and holding them. But, for the most part, I don't need to own all this stuff unless
It brings back a memory or something. Like I was on YouTube a few days ago, and there was like a clips from the old cartoon called Thundar the Barbarian, and it took me back to getting up early on Saturday mornings, and sitting in my mom's little chair in front of the TV, like her little ottoman or whatever, and just with my eyes glued to it,
Yeah.
And I mean, that doesn't mean I'm gonna go out and collect all the DVDs or whatever. But yeah, some things, I got a few things that mean something like it to me. Like I used to collect these. I don't know if you remember the toy company Corgi. They made these die-cast tanks.
And the tanks.
Yeah, I got the Tiger One Panzer, and I got the some of the American tanks too. And and they're so sturdy like Tonka toys. I used to have battles with them.
Yeah,
I used to bury my GI Joes in the backyard and forget where they were at. I'd have funerals for them.
Oh. Yeah, I never had GI Joes. That was the thing. Like all my friends were into GI Joe, and I was like Star Wars. So like I didn't even have GI Joes.
Well, I had that too. Yeah, I had, and I don't know what happened.
I afford them as a kid. That's the thing. Like, there's so many big chunky toys and planes and tanks. Like I just couldn't afford them, so we never had them.
I had the one time they did get me something so cool was they got me Castle Grayskull.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of He-Man guys. Yeah,
it's just. I just loved it. Or like I would play with stuff until that's why I don't have anything. I would play with it till it was like falling apart. Like I had like the Optimus Prime, and his arms were like this right here from transforming him so many times.
Yeah. Well, all my like Hot Wheels and stuff, like my Matchbox cards. I mean, forget it. Like I would, it's a contest to see like how hard you can crash them. So all of them had like no paint. They were broken wheels and axles. I would just run them down the ramps and stuff. So like, I just destroyed my toys. There was nothing left. Yeah.
Oh, I used to put them like, I go to my cousin's house. He had like an above ground pool, and I'd have like one of the GI Joe boats or some boat, and I would just sink it in I'd ruin stuff. It's just I was like that too.
Yeah.
I just put the toys are meant to be played with, guys. I'm just I'm saying I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of out of questions. If anybody's got a question before we go, let me know. I just I thought I had it planned out good, but see. My problem with streaming is, or just doing YouTube video, I peter out at the end. Like we did a stream about 3 weeks ago with some of my friends, and we digressed from talking about comic books and the new upcoming movies to talking about like World War II trivia.
Oh yeah,
so,
I can do that all day too. I love World War II.
Yeah, I do too. I could watch that all night.
I should say I love it. I'm fascinated by it. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't love what happened, guys. We just
exactly.
But my father was kind of interested in that. Well, we could tell us what are some of your favorite movies.
Oh man, wow! You guys are pulling out like the obvious questions, but also like they're really difficult. So I know everyone loves movies, but like I am sort of a cinephile. I'm a snob a little bit on movies, unfortunately. I watch a lot of artsy fartsy stuff. There's a lot of movies I like. Like the simple answer is the movies that is like my safe place, my happy place. The Lord of the Rings movies, like I'll watch like extended editions only. I will watch those drop of a hat. Like if it's on TV, I stop on it. A lot of the Marvel movies, I'll do the same. Those are great for me. I can't pick any one movie. That's really
you don't have to. Just like I don't. I like but I like the artsy fartsy because I have a lot of Criterion Collection movies.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, all right.
They make you think more.
Yeah, I mean, like and everyone says Shawshank Redemption. Like that's the best movie to not win an Academy Award, right? That's fantastic. I'll watch. Same thing. That movie comes on, I'll watch it. I like old movies.
I do too.
And I do actually like musicals. So West Side Story. The original West Side Story. We used to watch it as a kid. I come from my dad's a music teacher. Both of my parents are into music. I grew up. I'm a musician, so musical stuff. I've always liked musicals. My wife hates musicals, which is kind of funny. So I loved and West Side Story scared the crap out of me as a kid. I mean, because like you look at these characters, and then there's a knife fight, and they die. Like people get killed and shot. It used to scare me, but the music really pulled at the heartstrings. So I love West Side Story. I love White Christmas. Bing Crosby. I'm getting excited Christmas is coming because that's one of my favorite Christmas movies. It's a Wonderful Life, same thing. Yeah.
Well, that's a classic. That movie, even if it's not, it
Oh,
didn't have
yeah.
to be a classic Christmas movie. It's just a classic movie.
It's classic. Yeah. So I like classic. Jaws, I think, is probably the best one of the best made movies of all time. Love Jaws.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's great. Empire Strikes Back, my favorite Star Wars movie.
Mine too.
Yeah, there you go. That's the best one. So,
It
so those are
is.
all the easy ones. You know, I have to think more about it. I mean, if you want to get like really deep, I like science fiction a lot. Modern movies. This came up the other day. A buddy of mine was saying he wanted to watch a movie. Any suggestions? That a movie he hasn't seen in a while. The movie The Arrival with Amy Adams in.
Oh, that's a great movie.
That movie is awesome. I love that movie, and I watched. That's another one of those movies like. It'll be like 1 a.m, and I'll see it on TV. I'm like, I'm staying up to 3 now. I'm watching this stupid movie.
Absolutely.
I love that movie. I like really high science fiction quite a bit. So any of those, yeah.
I used to enjoy the old sci-fi movies that come on late at night, like Forbidden Planet.
Oh yeah, the old Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of movies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I get a kick out of that stuff.
Oh, it's awesome.
But I was a cinephile when it came to. I don't know. I became like when I was in my early 20s. I was obsessed with 1970s movies.
Yeah,
like Martin Scorsese or I can't remember his name. All of a sudden, Roman Polanski, like Chinatown.
Oh yeah,
one of my favorite movies of all time.
Wow. Okay.
And some people are like, I don't get it. I'm like, well, you don't really have to get the whole thing. It's just like I used to love watching these actors, and like even older than that though. I remember my dad. Well, maybe not older than that, but we would watch he would watch reruns of Have Gun Will Travel, or like, and then I got into Westerns because of him, because he would like watch The Wild Bunch by, I don't know if you know that movie, the Sam Peckinpah movie. It's got William Holden in it, and or like The Outlaw Josie Wells or something like that. And like, so he kind of, my guy got my love for movies from my dad. We actually did a show on Veterans Day, and we listed some of our top 10 favorite war movies, and a lot of mine were like old movies, like actually somebody did more than me, but like I had like Apocalypse Now and Patton on there.
Yeah, no, those guys. I like war movies. I was never really into like horror. I like appreciate like horror movies. I don't like the splatter films, but like like scary. Like that's why I like Jaws so much. It's a scary movie, but it's also a great one. On both sides.
Jaws is a perfect movie all the way around. I don't care what anybody says.
No, it is exactly. Yeah, like I said, any that science fiction, like someone mentioned there, Aaron mentioned 12 Monkeys. Yeah, 12 Monkeys is an awesome film. I do like a lot of the I like Inception, Memento, any of the
Christopher
Nolan movies. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Memento was a pretty awesome movie when I first saw that.
Memento.
Yeah, Memento, yeah.
That blows me away. That's just such a crazy story, and it's a brilliant idea.
A movie I love? This is a movie no one ever brings up, but I love this movie. Master and Commander, Far Side of the World.
That movie was great with Russell Crowe.
That movie. Oh man, I love the movie. I don't know what it is about that movie. It's a historic movie. It's very realistic in a lot of ways of what ship life would have been back then. I love that movie. Like, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I mention to people like, anyway. Is that ship movie? Like, people have never seen it before. It's a great movie.
And I love historical stuff like that. Like, I watched the movie that Gary Oldman did, where he won the Academy Award for playing Winston Churchill.
Oh yeah,
that just blows me away. But I like all kinds of stuff. I even watch the old Grindhouse movies, or the the old exploitation films. And I just grew up on it. And we talk about musicals, and we circle back. I remember watching Paint Your Wagon with my mom.
Wow, yeah.
And I was like, Dirty Harry can sing? What?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't sing that well, but still, I thought it was interesting to see like Lee Marvin singing.
Yeah,
because he seems like such a tough guy, but I guess he had a soft.
Most actors, like they're artsy people. They're very talented.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why like Hugh Jackman is nuts. Like how good he is in everything he does. The guy, there's nothing he can't do. It's pretty fun to watch him. Yeah,
I've seen him in Oklahoma, and then I'm like, this guy plays Wolverine too,
right? Oh, The Greatest Showman. He thinks great in that. Or Les Mis, he's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The fact he can do that, he has a lot of range.
Like the ones that you go see. My mom took me to see Little Shop of Horrors, and I guess that was a perfect one. Yeah. But we saw the theatrical version too.
Oh, okay,
and that's the perfect kind of musical to take your child to, because there's talking plants and stuff in it, and
Oh yeah,
But the movie's great too. I guess
people
I
getting
mean, I
chopped
don't know.
up and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might not have should have took me to it, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah, same thing. Like I've seen a couple of same thing. Like Sweeney Todd's one of those things. Like great music, and then you're like, whoa, this is dark
Whoa,
stuff.
did you just cut that guy with a razor blade? Oh my God!
Yeah, exactly. I saw Jekyll and Hyde on Broadway. Actually, too many ballads. Just too many. It's good, but just too many ballads, too many slow songs. But same thing. It's like, oh, he's murdering people. So,
I mean,
that's what you bring the kids to.
Yeah. I probably not want to take any kids to see that.
Pizza Rat, my favorite YouTube channel, completely outside comic space. Oh man, so this is actually kind of funny because I have I have Lunch Money Comics and all the people I subscribe to on that are YouTube, comic book things. Yeah, like my own personal one. I guess I didn't mention that before. Before lunch, bless you.
Sorry, like I said, I'm getting cold.
Yeah, I know. So before Lunch Money Comics, the reason I kind of knew how to edit and stuff and film was because me and my brother-in-law, he started a YouTube channel about hiking. So we're big hikers. We climb mountains a lot. So we started doing that. That's how I got into it. So I have my own little personal channel. Like I did this stuff. I like science related things. So I watch PBS Space Time, which is I don't even understand all of it, but I really enjoy it. Joe Scott, Answers with Joe. I watched. He does all sorts of just random crazy stuff, science related, history related. So I like stuff like that. Veritasium, I like, and the Cosmonaut Picture Show. If you guys haven't watched it, he does reviews of everything nerdy, comic books a little bit, but movies mostly. He is the best. He's the best movie reviewer out there and TV show reviewer. So those are my go-tos, I think, outside of comic books.
Well, outside of comic books, I guess my favorite would be like I don't know if you've heard of him. I think he's an ex-Navy SEAL. His name is Mr. Ballin, and he tells like spooky stories, and he's pretty fun. He'll tell like
that.
Huh?
My kids would love that stuff. They always want scary stuff in the car.
It's not. He don't sell graphic stuff either. He doesn't tell like graphic stories, but he tells stuff that like spooky. Like
that's what they want. They want spooky stuff. Oh, all right. I'll have to remember that.
It's a Ballen, Mr. Ballin. Awesome. He kind of wears a hat backwards like me, but he used to be a Navy SEAL. He's got an interesting backstory. Then I also like, I guess this is probably like saying you like hamburgers, because everybody likes hamburgers, but A Good Mythical Morning, Rhett and Link.
I've never watched it.
Oh, those guys are hilarious. They do they'll try different foods, and it's kind of funny. And then I watch a lot of, I like to cook and stuff, so I watch a lot of cooking stuff, and stuff like that, and then or comedic podcasts, I guess stuff. But there's all kinds. There's something for everybody out there. I like the solo camping videos people do.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of what we were doing, kind of like backpacking videos. What we started off, but I love watching those. Those guys who do they go fishing out in the middle of like Washington State or whatever. I love watching those. Expedition Unknown, Bell Izzy had mentioned. Yeah, my kids love watching that. He's actually from Loki. He grew up the town next to me. So we do like that show quite a bit. The kids love watching it. And I'm into a lot of that stuff, and he's archaeology and stuff. And someone asked, favorite Disney movie? Oh man, that's hard.
That's a tough one for me.
Same thing. Like for me, it's like there's a difference between like what your favorite is and like what you think the best is. I think people in general in life, people often don't separate whether something's good or not with what they like it or not. They're like, I like this, so it's good. That's not necessarily true. People also like things that are bad. That's your guilty pleasure. So I would say like the best Disney film like ever. I think Beauty and the Beast is like
it's amazing.
It's amazing. It's incredible, and it still holds up. I love Beauty and the Beast. Again, that whole early 90s, that renaissance there, all the music's fantastic.
Lion King.
Yeah, same thing. Lion King's like ludicrously good. Like some of the modern ones I love, like I really like Moana. I like the music in it. Tangled is still fantastic. But if I got to go old school a little bit, Beauty and the Beast is probably the best. And when I was a kid, Sword in the Stone, I love Sword in the Stone because it's kind of like more fantasy. So I love that one.
I like the Fox and the Hound.
Yeah, Fox and the Hound was a good one. Yeah.
It was just, but you know what? Disney would traumatize children. I've been saying this, like he knew he couldn't be friends with him no more. And I would bawl as a kid, or like I don't know. They didn't seem and also if you're not going, I can go outside of Disney. Some of the movies they would target for kids to watch were kind of dark, like Secret of the NIMH.
Oh yeah, I loved Secret of NIMH when I was a kid.
Yeah, and
Loved it.
Fire and Ice, the Frank Frazetta cartoon. I was like,
Oh yeah,
I was watching. I'm like, I don't think I'm old enough to
dude.
be watching
Never ending
this.
story. I know it's cliche, but never ending story, man. Like
Oh
I
my
don't know how
God,
she
yeah.
survived it.
That still
Like that.
traumatizes me today.
Oh, unbelievable! Right, like there's a T-shirt you can get like where your therapist asks like where all of your issues came from. And it's a picture of Artax like sinking into the swamps. Like every
Yeah.
'80s kid remembers it, but I freaking love that movie. Like I hear that theme of that movie. Oh man, nothing gets me jacked up. Labyrinth, I loved Labyrinth as a kid. Jim
That
Henson
movie's
stuff
awesome.
like that.
Yeah.
Dark Crystal I remember watching when I was like 3 years old. Like I loved all of those movies as a kid, and that really inspired a lot.
Legend with Tom Cruise.
Legend is a terrifying movie to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Tim Curry. People don't realize that's like Tim Curry is the devil.
No, I know.
He's terrifying, but that movie is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like
too, right?
Yeah, Mia Sarah. She was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Everybody, if you don't remember,
absolutely. Yeah.
I had probably one of my first crushes on a girl.
There you go.
Her in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So
yeah,
and I love the old what's his name, John Hughes. I love his old movies.
Oh yeah,
I grew up on that. Like to me, I thought high school was going to be like The Breakfast Club.
Oh right.
Until I got into high school,
Yeah, it's an exaggeration. It was kind of like it. Yeah. Oh, Dr. Van Hoot mentioned
Robin Hood. Old to be a high schooler, but we'll let it slide.
I was a little too young for those ones. Dr. Van Hoot mentioned Robin Hood is the GOAT. I agree. Robin Hood.
Oh yes.
Robin Hood. How do we forget? Love that movie as a kid. Still love that movie.
Oh yeah.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Man, you guys now we're going to have memory lane. Could we have to be animated Disney movies? Bedknobs and Broomsticks is amazing.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
That scared me too. That was a good one though. Yeah.
Let's talk about breaking our hearts.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that. Yeah.
But I liked all those old I don't think they were Disney movies, but the Don Knotts movies.
Like the Mr. Limpet, like the fish one, like that one. Yeah. My mom was into that one, so I used to watch it. Yeah.
And but like I used to love the Ghost of Mr. Chicken and this is not animated, but Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And
wow, that's pretty funny. We can do this all day. We can do this all night. How much time you got?
I know. We're gonna
need to start like a movie channel or something like that.
Turn into a movie channel all of a sudden. I'm sorry, my bad.
Great.
Well, I guess I think we'll just end it there. I really appreciate you doing this, man. You didn't have to. I would tell you, it's a testament. This man right next to me here on the screen. He's got like 16K subscribers, right? I've got 147. He still came on here and did this and took time out of his busy schedule. So I want everybody to thank Mike for coming on here. And I hope you can stay in touch with me, bro. You have my Instagram. And it's really been a pleasure talking to you. And I feel like if you go over like an hour and 30 minutes, it kind of you run out of things to talk about on the show. But we went down the rabbit hole. See, I told you about the end of the show. We went down the rabbit hole of movies. But anyway, let me do my outro and I'll talk to you later. Oh no, his computer restarted. Well, we'll give it a chance to come back, guys. I'll show you something I got today. Hold on. I got. We'll let Mike come back in. He's gone. So, I got this today. This is my new comics I got today. He will hold yours like. Well, his computer went out, guys. But so I'll just end it here. Actually, all right. But yeah, I got some cool stuff today. There'll be some. I'll just make some announcements. I'll be doing a review of this. We'll see we'll wait a minute, see if he comes back. Because I really wanted to talk to him about something after the show. But got JSA 1 and I got the Absolute Superman 1. Got the Batgirl 1. This is the Art Germ 1. I just showed these on Chris the Comic Book Show. I got the second print of this one today. Finally, my comic shop. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for that. So you're waiting on the punch. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a nice cover. It's an Art Germ variant. I didn't show that. Okay, then we got this one today. I really appreciate you guys showing up. We'll see if I'm just gonna give him a chance to try to come back if he wants to. But here, let me see my phone, see if he sent me another message. I had fun tonight. I don't know if you guys did. I really appreciate everybody showing up tonight. Let's check the phone and we'll check some more of these comments here. There he is. There he is. We found him. I wanted to stick around until you came back. I saw you. I got your message on my phone.
Windows needed to install an update right then, right as I'm signing off. I apologize. Jeez.
Well, wouldn't it be? Would have been worse if it happened to me and mine froze near my show. But I'll talk to you for a second after. I really appreciate you coming on here.
No, and, man, anytime, man. Absolutely. And like I say, you're cool with the community. It doesn't matter, how many views you get, whatever. Yeah. Everyone's the same, right? We're all the same. Everyone likes jumping on each other's channels to talk about comic books. So anytime, man.
Be on my Sunday night stream. You're more than welcome.
I'd love to. Yeah, you guys, you have good company. I was watching your other videos. You guys are a great group of people that jump on and have a conversation with you. So
yeah, see, that's what it's all about to me. It's like the community. Because I've met some. I don't get out much, and a lot. When you're younger, you think your friends are going to be your friends forever, right? And then everybody grows up, moves away, has families, gets married, and I've been able to get more, meet some great people doing this. And like you mentioned way back when we first started about, you don't really have many friends in your personal life that like comics that much. And I didn't either. It's just me. I was me against the world when it came to comics. I'd look at somebody and go, hey, I was reading, Man Without Fear, Daredevil today. It's really, they're like, really? I might as well have an alien come out of my ear.
Right.
Sit on my shoulder, right? But anytime, man, I'll send you a link sometime. And we're just glad. I think Flat Earth said something a minute ago. He said he was going to reserve thank you till you punched Josh and I can't remember his name, but
Josh and Larry.
Yeah. All right. So, besides, I don't condone violence, so I can't condone any of that.
Yeah. Just a little chuck on the chin or something, like a little, a love tap. That'll be fine. So
there you go. Well, let me. I guess I'm going to wind off here so I can get some more reading done, you guys. So, Mike's going to catch up on some reading too. So
you got to do it.
Until next time, true believers. Excelsior.